Cheats here with fly fish food, and we have a really cool fly for you. It's a PMD pattern mixed with an old classic. A little while back, Tom, Tim, and I did a three-way tie-off on a Tups Indispensable, and we've turned it into a modern-day PMD.
Dude, that's a big brown
A little bit ago, I was involved in a three-way tie-off with Mr. Tom Rosenbauer and Tim Flagler. And we tied a Tups Indispensable. There's a funny story about it. Anyway, it's like a yellow fly that has a little bit of pink in it. And so I got thinking. A lot of the PMDs around the West are pinkish, and sometimes they're yellow, and sometimes you have multiple colors hatching at the same time. So why not just add them together? So the Tups Indispensable fly kind of got me thinking about this. This is really nothing more than just a It's a hackle stacker. Hackle stacker PMD with a funny thorax. And yes, to my friends overseas that like to call it a paraloop, sure, call it a paraloop. I like calling them paraloops too, but more people here refer to them as hackle stackers where I live anyway. So anyway, we'll just get this started. Primrose thread from Semperfli is going to be the ticket here. I think Uni has a color called Light Cahill. And then I think there's like a cream color from UTC that's good as well. So I'm going to keep it pretty sparse, try to keep it fairly thin. This is going to have a tail of micro fivets. You can do either one or two per side. Let me make sure I got 4 of these suckers. All right, so I have 4 of these fibers, and I just think 2 tails shows up for the fish a little bit better. It's not an entomological thing. So don't tell Dr. Roger that I'm doing this, but it has 4 tails instead of 2. So I'm just going to wrap this forward, create a smooth body. I've untwisted my thread by spinning my thread counterclockwise a little bit, and that's why it's laying down so smooth. So I'm going to go back to the tail now, because there's one thing we need to do. We're going to split this tail. Split the tail, you got to take your thumbnail, go up here. We're going to grab 2 on one side, 2 on the other, just like Brigham's mustache. And we're going to take the thread now, go like this, and pull it between those 2 tail segments and lightly tie that down. If you pull that too tight, it will make your legs, or make the tails angle too much out. So we'll just take this and we'll wrap this forward. We'll untwist if we need to. And we're going to wrap it all the way to here. Adult mayflies don't have very much taper in their bodies. So we'll leave this fella fairly flat. We might build a little tiny bit of taper though. You can see this is a corded thread. If you just untwist it, it'll lay down nice and smooth. All right, so now we're going to build a wing, or not a wing, kind of the wing and the legs all together. This is a hackle stacker pattern. So we've done a video on this before, but we'll show you the way I like to do it. I've got a piece of Spanflex, and I'm just going to make a loop long enough for my finger to fit through it. We have a few videos on this technique that shows it in depth. All right, so you're going to take your Spanflex and you're going to put those both down, catch them down, and you're going to put a lot of pressure here going forward. The reason is because I'm going to stretch this with my finger pretty tight to get the hackle wrapped, and I want to make sure that it's not going to pull out. Get rid of these little nubs hanging off there. And then I will wrap that forward. See how they're nice and covered up now. Those are pretty well secured, and I'm ready to tie in some hackle. So PMD wings aren't yellow like the body. They're like a grayish brownish. If you have I think this is a, what is this one? This is a light tan dun. Medium dun works well as well. Light dun. If you need to, you could probably use grizzly. I think the fish aren't that particular, but light tan dun's my favorite. So I'm just going to wrap that down And the reason why I kind of don't give you an exact color is because hackle can kind of be hard to find. So you shouldn't have to go out and buy a brand new thing of hackle just because you want to tie a different color PMD. So anyway, I'm going to stretch this with my finger, and with my thumb and middle fingers, I'm going to wrap this around this span flex, and I'm just going to go up about to here, and see how messy that hackle is. It's not really staying in one direction. It kind of looks gnarly, but I'm going to make that hackle roughly the same length as the thorax. So when I pull that over about right there, I might go one more up. Okay, so that's the length that I'm looking for. Now I'm going to fill in and make it nice and full by wrapping it back down over the top of itself all the way down to the initial tie-in point. There you go. We've got a really dense hackle, and now I'm going to pull everything back except for that excess. And see how I use a pinch wrap with my finger? I'm going to put the thread up between my thumbs right here and then down on the other side. Anyway, so there it's tied in. I can release the span flex, and yes, it would be easier if you had like 4 hands for this one, but let's see, I'll try to get my fingers out of the way. Sometimes because of this tie down, you got a lot of hackle fibers to trim off as well. And you can spend time and only tie down exactly the stem by splitting everything out of the way, but I don't have time for that. Alright, so there we have it. That's our hackle section ready to be tied in, and this is where the indispensable part comes in. I have a cool little blend of dubbing. It's nice and buggy. It's actually a nymph dub, but it will work fine on a dry fly. It's the Ultra Nymph dub from Fulling Mill in Cotton Candy. So I'm going to take just a tiny little pinch of that, and I'm just going to try to dirty up that thorax with a little pink dubbing before I pull the hackle over. Alright, again, I'll kind of peel my hackle out of the way to start this. Wrap forward, wrap on top of itself if you have to, just like that, and we're in. I'll trim some of this out of the way. Before I do the next step, I'll probably just throw a little whip finish in there just because I'm talking while I'm tying. Sometimes I pull things out. Alright, make our tail look nice. So this is a really cool part. So you see how much material gets jammed into that eye. It would be hard to tie this down without trapping a bunch of material. So you're going to just take the span flex, hold it right by the hook eye, and just do a few loose wraps, 2 or 3. That's too loose. Let's do that again. Leave it in, Brigham. There we go. 2 or 3 loose wraps, and then I'm going to take that span flex and just pull it forward, and then it just perfectly mashes that hackle over the thorax. And you could, I might do that again because I had a few kind of go wayward on me. So that means I'm just going to tease the hackles up, and then the next time I do that, it should be better. So here you go, and we're tied in. Now to tie it off, I take everything back, and I'm going to kind of wrap a dam in front of that, and that kind of compresses this tie down into the last tie down you just did. We'll whip finish with just a few turns. Then to get these out of there, they look like they're big old bulky things. There's going to be a lot hanging off of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull them tight, not too tight, but tight enough, and trim them. So you can't even see where those came from now. Anyway, that is a cool way to tie a PMD, but we're going to call this one the Indispensable PMD, and guess what? It's going to smack them.